My parents were militant atheists for reasons which, to me are perfectly they were not militant. They were angry.
Yeah, given their past.
My mother's father was fanatically religious, fanatical. My mother said he was more religious than any rabbi. And she told the story that when the Nazis invaded in 1939, they were of the Polish middle class. And she said they had the money to leave. They could have left. And she said, my father, she said, he was so stupid. He was so stupid. He was so stupid, but she loved him to death. She revered him. He said God would never let this happen to the Jewish, nothing bad to happen to the Jewish people. So they stayed. So my mother never forgave that. So she had no tolerance whatsoever for religion. I even remember her last week, she was in bed. A friend of mine, I can name him, Evan Siegel, and his wife, Mina, who was a Baha'i from Iran. They came to see her, they knew her, and she approached my mother and said something about God. My mother was already like 90 pounds. She had a horrible cancer. The cancer ate up her whole face. Her whole face was blood and boils. It was like a science fiction movie. And even in her last days, she went like this, "Get away from me with God!"
Scared me there.
"Get away from me with God!" They didn't want to hear anything about God. But, for me, respecting my parents as I always do, and their life experience. I never quarreled with them about their life experience. They hated Germans. They hated Poles. Don't dare say a positive word about them. My father hated Germans. Hated Germans. Not Nazis. Don't get me, that's the distinction that was very precious to my father. Once he read a book, it was on the Nazi Holocaust, and he recommended the book to me. He said, "Norman, you should read this book." I said, "Why do you like it?" He said, "I like the fact that they didn't talk about Nazis and distinguish them from Germans. They were all Nazis, period, full stop." I would never quarrel with my parents about those things. Never. On the other hand, I'm now approaching an age when they already died. They died at 74. So I'm allowed my own opinions at this point in my life. And my view is, the older you get, the more you realize life's a complete mystery. What is it? Are we all just, by virtue of evolutionary biology, are we fixed because we have choice? Has it just been fixed in our minds to believe that there's some purpose? So I reach the point in my life where I figure everybody has his, her way of trying to make sense of this thing called life. And if some people, they can sort out, make some sense of it through religion, who am I to tell them they're wrong? Everybody's kind of fabricating some sense to this thing that doesn't have any sense in and of itself. So, I'll tell you the truth. Muslim young people, they're so respectful. They're so kind. They're so decent. And I find that with my African-American students. I know it's going against stereotypes, make me sound like a liberal, which I'm not, or politically correct, which I'm not. But I've always found my most respectful students by far are African-American males, by far. You know why? Religion. Because if they made it to college, it's almost always because they went to church. They were
Really?
Yes, they were church going. And the church had a very positive impact. I'll tell you a story. I think I mentioned earlier my student Luke in Sindora still, the one who's now up for a Fulbright. And there are details I can't reveal, but he had some serious problems. And one day after class, he came over to me and he said, "Professor Finkelstein, will you be my mentor?" Nobody had ever asked me that. I started teaching in the 80s, 88. Nobody had ever asked me. I was such an audacious thing to ask. I said, "Sure, of course." And I said, "Okay, so what do you want to do with your life?" And he said, "I want to be a lawyer." I said, "Okay, what are your majors?" He said, "Business and psychology." I said, "Forget that. That's out. You want to be a real lawyer? You're going to take philosophy and English. Philosophy teaches you how to reason. English teaches you how to write. And if you want to be a lawyer, it's two things. It's reasoning, logic, and writing, composition."
That strikes me as really good advice.
So I said, well, I get an email from him 2 weeks later. I changed my majors, English and philosophy. To fast forward, he's now gotten, and he had serious problems. I can't respect for him. I won't go into it, but serious problem. 23 straight A's. 23 straight A's. And now a Fulbright finalist. So here's a funny story, a little self-effacing, but who cares? So I said, Lukinson, what you did is just breathtaking. Your turnaround. I've never seen anything like it. He's studying medieval literature with a fervor and a passion. And I said, it's like a miracle. And he said to me, well, I attribute it to, and what do you think I'm waiting for him to say?
You.
You. And you know what he said?
Huh.
God.
Ah.
He's very active in church. God. And that's my way of saying it served a positive force in his life. How can I begrudge it? How can I be, like those bi-coastal elites, those secular bi-coastal elites who look down their nose at religion and religious people? How could I do that? Now, my mother would say, religion's stupid. Once there was a door-to-door salesman who came to our home, and he had a box, and he was selling some wares before internet. There were people who called door-to-door salesmen. And he rings our doorbell. My mother says, "Yes, what do you want?" And he said, he's selling Bibles. My mother said, "Bibles? Shove it up your ass." No tolerance, but I'm going. It's not just tolerance. Tolerance means you accept it even though you don't like it. It's not just tolerance. It's more than tolerance. It's a kind of humble recognition. I don't have the answers. I can't pretend to know the answers to the bigger questions about the meaning and purpose, if there is a meaning and purpose to life. So I'm not going to, you can be firm in your belief. I remember Professor Chomsky was asked, do you believe in afterlife? What do you think? And he just said very matter-of-factly, he said, no, I believe it's all over and all gone, and that's that, So you have the right to the conviction. But I think, John Stuart Mill says, you always have to leave a place in your mind for doubt that you might be wrong, because we are fallible creatures. And once you admit to your fallibility, then you have to admit that you could be wrong on this, that, or the other. There's never certainty. So you have a right to your convictions, for sure, and you can be emphatic about your convictions, but I think you should always leave a space for doubt. I remember one thing my mother said, which I keep, now that I'm getting to the end of life's journey. I remember she said, I think the spirit lives after you die. After you die. Wow, coming from such a hardened racist, atheist, for her to say that, And it's not something to get indignant about. You see, that was the thing Alex Coburn said. It was like a conversation between people of the left who are religious and not religious. It was like a friendly conversation. You don't have to do what Hitchens did, to mock, to treat with contempt, to affect saying you must be an idiot if you believe things. You know who used to do that? George Carlin, the comedian. Yeah. That was the one place where I disagreed with him. He was so contemptuous. People can be brilliant and still have religious belief. It doesn't make you stupid. Was Newton stupid? Ramanujan, the great Indian mathematician, he was absolutely certain God planted every single thought in his mind. How'd you do it? How'd you figure this out? Well, he said God. Is he dumb? But that was Hitchens' attitude. Anybody who believed in God, anyone who believed in religion, had to be an idiot. No, they're not idiots. Sorry, there are a lot of people I know, devout Muslims, who are brilliant physicists. They know more about science than you, Mr. Hitchens. They're not stupid. They're not stupid. It's just not correct.